and I had a fantastic childhood. We didn't have much, maybe compared to other people, but that mattered not a jot. We just had a really happy, loving childhood. My A-level results weren't the best. I think I got a D and an E in maths and whatever. But I took economics for the first time, found it the easiest thing in the world, realised I had a kind of affinity with economics and stormed it with an A and absolutely loved it, found it so interesting, business in general. When I started the business, I started with absolutely nothing. So just kind of tracking back on. So I'll maybe come to that, but it was that kind of drive of starting with nothing and thinking, how am I going to pay my bills this week? Try and have that plan and try and be ahead of the game. Try and say, okay, I'm someone that has never wanted to stand still. I've always wanted to be at that next level. If you're on your deathbed looking back, have you done all the things you can do to be the true you? Is that the true Richard Skerritt, looking back on his life going, that was I had a good run. I'm enormously proud that my business that I started in my spare room, it was my shared room, with some ex kind of Polytechnic dads, and that's where we started. So to see that happen is just really, really satisfying. Success is built in the hard times, failure is built in the good times. I'll be happy when I get the new car or the new house or the new whatever, when that happens. And it's such a shame, and we're all guilty of it, thinking that something in the future is going to make us happier when we should look at ourselves and everything's great now. I remember going back when times are hard. I remember one of my measures of success, I had a Ford Escort that cost me 150 quid at the time. It'd been written off 3 times by insurance companies, 4 different colour panels, whatever. The first time I went in there, I could fill the petrol tank up and be confident my car would work. I honestly, to this day, I'll never forget treating that as, Skerritt, you're doing okay. Define success. I wouldn't say he was successful in terms of that from as a human being. Monetary wise, business wise, but to be successful as a human being, you have to be happy. You have to be, reach that self-actualization.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. Through sharing the stories of our guests, I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. Okay, welcome to another episode of the podcast. When I started the podcast, it was people always ask me who inspires you. For me, one of the reasons for starting the podcast was I know we're surrounded within this amazing Sussex business community by truly inspirational people, and my guest today is certainly one of those. I'm delighted to welcome Mr. Richard Skerritt to the podcast. Richard, how are you, sir?
I'm great, thanks, Sam, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, mate,
and
listen.
for the lovely intro.
Yeah, look, it's been... obviously, we've known each other through friends and social media and stuff over the years, and seeing what you've achieved as a true Sussex success story is pretty incredible, to be honest, and just truly honoured, obviously, to have you on. And look, it was interesting just speaking a little bit offline beforehand, boxing and all sorts, and having an interesting conversation. So I'm really keen to just delve straight in and go for it, mate.
Great.
Let's do it. Right, we're going to kick off as always with life in 60 seconds. As always, I think that everyone's journey starts. There's a story starts somewhere, right? So let's talk to me a little bit in 60 seconds. Just give me a snapshot about something in your childhood that shapes the man who sits in front of me today.
Yeah, I think I suppose looking back, one of the moments that probably changed how I am, how I look at life and how I deal with things. It probably comes back to the thing I was at school and had this chap, for some reason, decided he disliked me and decided every day he'd come and just basically punch me in the face, which for some bizarre reason I put up with for probably several months. Bothered me, big time. Kept it to myself. Apparently, one time I kind of spoke to my dad and kind of quizzed me, what's up? I told him this chap kept punching me in the face, and he looked at me rather bizarre and said, well, what do you do back? And I went, well, nothing. And he said, why? And I said, don't know, it probably scares me a bit. He said, well, next time he does it, just punch him 10 times harder in the face. So I probably did it slightly wrongly, because he'd told me to wait until the chap did it to me before taking kind of action back. And I walked into school right in front of the biology teacher at the school, and this chap had just literally punched him as hard. It's probably one of the best punches I've ever done. Straight in the face, knocked him over, bloody nose, all this kind of stuff. You know what, I walked away there just with that massive smile on my face. Thought, you know what an idiot for not doing that before.
Yeah.
Stand up for yourself. Don't let someone put you under that kind of thing. And I never have since. But it probably needed that to kind of demonstrate to me that that's how you deal with bullies or people that try and, because I think you get a lot of bullying in life, and it's not necessarily kids at school. It's people in business, it's people in life generally that can bully you in lots of different ways or try and do that. And I think whether that was a pivotal moment, but I've like to think I've never let people do that to me, and I try not to let people do it to other people as well, because quite often you see people and you can see they're kind of being bullied in a way, and it's good to kind of stand up to those people, because that's how they get forward.
Love that. How old was you then?
I was probably 12 or 13.
Wow.
When I was, I'm kind of 6'5" and 18 stone now, but I was a late grower, so I was actually. I remember at school we had to line up shortest to tallest, and I was second shortest in my year. It was like 60
really?
boys. I was second smallest kid, weedy at the time. So I've put a bit of weight on since then. But I suppose again picking on what's seen as the weakest at the time. So. But I'll never forget that moment, and the great advice from my dad.
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's one of them. I grew up in Dagenham, and it was, probably I went to one of the worst schools in the borough at the time. So you did, and it was one of them. You did have to. I was really lucky. I was really good at football, so I got away with a lot. To be fair, so I was quite lucky. But
that's the thing. I mean, I was the opposite. I had an elder brother who was a very good footballer. He ended up being the English schoolboy squad and everything. He was the golden boy wherever he went. He was the best footballer. And at the time, all I wanted to be was as good as my brother at football. And I never was, obviously.
Did you play though?
I tried. I played. I've always, tried to play, but never to any kind of standard whatsoever. So that's the important thing when you're 12 or 13, isn't it? All you want to do is be a footballer.
Yeah, mate, absolutely. But talk to me then a bit more about your childhood, like school. What was school like after that period?
I was brought up in Kings Lynn in Norfolk, so a kind of small market town in Norfolk. Which is always quite a lively town, good fun. But I suppose being really boring, I had the lovely childhood. I had two great parents, an older brother, younger sister. Really, really happy childhood. The days I think I kind of feel sorry for the generations today. They won't have that. Playing in the street on your bike, lighting fires, the kind of typical kind of. I don't sound like an Ed Sheeran song, but it's the kind of the stuff you do there, which is great, simple fun. And I had a fantastic childhood. We didn't have much, maybe compared to other people, but that mattered not a jot. We just had a really happy, loving childhood.
What did your parents do?
My mum was a housewife. She brought up 3 kids, and my dad was a director of a business, engineering business. So he was. I take a lot from my dad. He's still alive. He's 86 now, and talk to him every day. He's my inspiration then, because I looked at him and totally admired him. And when I was a kid, if my dad was going on a 5-hour kind of trip in his Ford Cortina at the time to go, so I would go with him, and I just loved being in his environment. I loved what he did. I loved the fact if he was a salesman, if he got he came out with a big smile on his face, I would get that kind of joy as well. So. I thoroughly loved it, and I think that's what gave me the kind of feel in life that one day I want to go into business and do that.
Really, because you saw that. Because again, this is something that really fascinates me. And one of the reasons I always like starting with the childhood and the start of people's stories, because to get into that business journey, where was that inspiration? Where does that come from? What did you want to be other than a footballer? When you...
When I realised I wasn't going to make
the
England football team. I think I've always enjoyed business, and I think I took a lot from as I say, I'd go in his car journey and chat to him about the business, and he was always really happy to talk to me about that. And I developed this real interest in business and everything else as well. And at school, we didn't do business, but we had a chance to do economics at A-level, and my A-level results weren't the best. I think I got a D and E in maths and whatever, but I took economics for the first time, found it the easiest thing in the world, realised I had a kind of affinity with economics, and stormed it with an A, and absolutely loved it, found it so interesting, business in general. So
and the numbers side of stuff that you just, I guess, looking at your career and your business, wealth management, and around that sort of.
I've always been good with numbers, which helped with darts. But I've always had a thing for numbers, and always found, I think if you find things easy, you kind of find them more enjoyable, don't you? I was hopeless at languages or anything like that, and still am. But the number side of thing, I just found relatively easy. So that was a natural kind of course. I was going to go into something involving that.
Yeah, and then so talk to me a little bit about then that early career, I guess, getting into wealth management before. Talk me
so I kind of I did my A-levels. I'd applied for universities, and I had a couple of kind of good universities accept me, and that was where I was going to go. And I suppose that's quite a life-changing moment. One of the chaps, one of my friends at school, his brother had come back and he'd gone down to Brighton. It was a polytechnic, and at the time a polytechnic was considered nowhere near as good as university. You always went to uni if you could. And he came back, he said, you've got to go to Brighton, fantastic place. So being a small, kind of Norfolk town, Brighton, the bright lights and everything else seemed a kind of glamorous option. So much to my kind of parents' dislike, I said, right, I'm going to Brighton Polytechnic. I'm going to go and do business in Brighton. And it was done purely on the basis of this chap said it's fantastic town. The nightlife's brilliant, this, that and the other. So back in 1985, I ended up going down to Brighton. Did actually where we're sat now, across the road was where I was.
Wow.
Very, very different in those days. It was a kind of converted factory. No glamour whatsoever. Did a 4-year business course. And I think part of that as well, so we had a sandwich course. So third year was out in industry, in business. So everyone either went to American Express or IBM. That was just the way it was. I ended up at American Express, and I think that probably taught me an enormous amount about what I didn't want to do.
Right.
So I was in a big team of I just found the whole thing so frustrating. I spent 15 months there, hated pretty much every day, just because of how I like to be where I can make a difference, where I can create something. But there it is, literally getting through the days. I was given a job which probably took me an hour a day, and I spent the rest of the time filling time. And it was so frustrating. And you'd look at the politics and the managers and the directors, and everyone was a vice president and everything else as well. And all I came out, I was thinking, I will never ever work for a big company. Really? And but there was nowhere in the world you could have maybe go to a big company. And it just reinforced my view that perhaps I struggle with having a boss as such. So the logical thing for me to do would be to work for myself, having had no idea what kind of line of business, but I just knew I wanted to work for myself.
Really, that's really interesting. Because again, back to, we spoke before we sort of come up, and I mentioned about the hair salon.
Yeah.
So actually, there was a part for me. Like, I was not a hairdresser; it was a business thing for me. But there was something just about business that I loved, and I actually went before I got into the salon. I almost had a coffee van business, and I almost got into property, and I just wanted to work for myself.
Yeah,
and
same here. Yeah,
own business. It wasn't necessarily, I've got this real passion for this, and I'm going to go and start that. It was just, I'm going to run my own business.
Yeah,
and
I think I've always had this thing of I've always wanted to be entrepreneurial, or kind of have this. I mean, I remember a famous story. A dear family friend who's no longer with us, but I remember one time he told the story all the time how I turned up to his front door selling daffodils, and kind of whatever. He's paid his whatever, went there. It was only half an hour later. He went out in his front garden, and he's little bastard stolen my daffodils. I'd sold him his own daffodils, and I'd basically gone around selling whatever. And he tells his story, and it was kind of wry smile. But I think I had always this desire to. I think there's something nice about earning money, and I'm not the most materialistic person in the world. I'm not someone, if you said to me, right, you go shopping, whatever, if I never had to shop again, I'd be delighted. I have my kind of weaknesses in cars and stuff, but I'm not a particularly materialistic person. But I really enjoy the kind of buzz, I suppose, of getting that business in or earning the money.
Because there's something about, I was talking to someone who's been on the podcast, Gary Peters, a friend of mine, and we was having a coffee yesterday, and we're sort of chatting away, and we're talking actually about both of our business where we are, and actually the sort of you run a business and you go out and you start on your own, you're going out and you're selling and you're going out and you're getting business in, and then all of a sudden you get up a bit high, you employ some people, and then they start doing that and you do a little bit less of that, and then sometimes you get to a point where actually maybe things are not going as well, and the thing that you love doing and you was really good at actually, you go, I just need to get back on the tools, if you like, and just go back out there and start doing it. You realise that's where that you actually. There's something, you're right, there's something magical about that where you get a deal over the line. Or
absolutely is. That's the kind of buzz which I think as the business grows, as you say, when you have lots of people working for you, and we've got 80 odd people working for us now, whatever. So you're kind of very detached from that side of things, and I absolutely do miss it. Really? I thoroughly enjoyed that. I think getting those little notches of success. I remember driving once to Lewis to sign someone up, driving back in my car, I've earned £15 on the sale kind of thing, being absolutely delighted. It didn't matter, and people looking at me going, "You crazy?" But it was just that fact of I knew that those little wins would eventually kind of accumulate to a big win and drive forward. And I think it's something that frustrates me enormously. With when you look at business now, so people when they come in haven't been through that kind of almost like an apprenticeship of, because when I started the business I started with absolutely nothing, so just kind of tracking back on, so I'll maybe come to that, but it was that kind of drive of starting with nothing and thinking, how am I going to pay my bills this week, and if I don't go out there and do it, no one's going to give it to me, and having that drive, which I think that drive and hunger is missing from a lot of people, and it frustrates me.
I completely. Again, an interview I spoke to, again having that drive, like talking with Kevin Burton when he talking about building Checker Trade, and he was about talking about that drive and that passion and that he had for as he grew it, and then, like you said, when you get to that point and he's sold it for a lot of money and financially free and all of them things, you go. He reckons he's got another idea that could be as potentially bigger than Checker Trade, yet there's obviously not that hunger there that you have when you've got that. Then
I think it's very difficult to do it twice. So I think once you've been on that journey, you have to go through a lot of pain to get where you want to go. When you're financially, so if you've sold your business for a lot of money, you don't need to work. And I think it's very difficult sometimes to do it when you don't need to. It's an appealing prospect of let's go out there, let's build this business up again. And we deal with lots of business people, and it's very rare, if it happens at all, where we say without that hunger or that need for them to do it, where it works as well. And I think people as well, where they kind of try and do it using other people, is never going to work, because those people aren't you. They haven't got the same drive as the successful people must have had that drive to get there in the first place. So expecting other people, and I think it's not everyone has the ability to do that, and it's a big mistake people make just because they're good at one thing. They're not necessarily going to be good when they try and do it again.
I completely agree, and also there's that part of understanding, I guess, when it's your business, understanding that it's you that runs that business, and you've got that drive and all the people you employ. You can build a great culture and have a great group, a great team of employees. But still, they're never gonna see it like it's their business, because it's not.
I think that's probably one of the mistakes I look back on. Is I expected everyone to be the same as me. Yet these people, they go home in the evening and they switch off. You don't, and it kind of annoyed me. They didn't have the same commitment, whatever else, as me over the years. And you go look back and you go, well, of course they're not going to. It's your business, it's not theirs. But if you apply your kind of, your standards, which you treat yourself to very high standards. If you try and expect everyone else to reach that, it's never going to happen. If they were up to that, they'd be doing it themselves. It's almost a kind of natural kind of thought process. So you learn a lot in business. I'd 33, 34 years now. Wow. It's a long time, and you learn a lot over that period of time. But you look back on it of how you do things slightly differently.
Would you, going back, would you do things differently?
It's one of those things you think about. I kind of Someone asked me this the other day, what would you do differently? And to be honest, I probably wouldn't do much differently. Maybe timings of when you do stuff, but I kind of built the business, and I would always, I think in our industry, so you have a lot of people in our industry who are really good at the job, but not necessarily businessmen. So they're really good wealth managers, financial advisors, everything else as well. And they were brilliant. And they built their business. And we had a kind of industry of lots of small businesses, but they were doing it without the kind of business side. So when I did my business degree, and at the time, despite thinking most of it is absolute rubbish and we're never going to use this in the real world kind of thing, there was actually a lot of stuff there that you look back on and go, just having a business plan. And I bet if you speak to most firms, smaller firms, honestly, they haven't got a proper business plan, which is craziness. But no one's ever told them to. They've started a business, they've got no one, a mentor or whatever, telling them to do it or someone to do it. So they just, things go well, they carry on doing it. Whereas I always had the business plan, always had the kind of
right from the start.
Right from the very start. So, I probably, when I started the business, had a lot of time to kind of plan stuff because I had no clients and no money. I always stuck to that, even now, try and have that plan and try and be ahead of the game. Try and say, okay, I'm someone that has never wanted to stand still. I've always wanted to be at that next level. And I've kind of got to the stage now where, I think as well, and I'm sure we'll come on to it, kind of, so when I sold part of the business to private equity, one of the reasons there was to get to that next level that I wouldn't be able to do on my own without some kind of external help.
So there's always, for you, there's always that thought process of, I've got to keep moving forward.
Absolutely,
I've got to keep moving forward.
Yeah, which I think kind of some people say, well, you'll never be happy because you're never happy with what you've got kind of thing. And I guess it's just the way I am. But my mind is always active. My mind is always thinking about whether it's a project at home or whether it's something like that. I love to have something on the go. And
But then, I would question that in the sense that people say you'd never be happy, but actually, from what I've learned, nearly 100 episodes, listening to you talk now, actually, it's not the happiness in them keep moving forward in that process of wherever you are on that stage. That's where you are happy because you're doing them things. Of course, there's struggle and there's pain points all along the way.
I honestly think, it sounds probably quite smug to say it, but I think I am probably one of the happiest people I know in terms of, I'm fortunate financially. Yeah. I've got the best family in the world, 6 lovely kids, lovely wife, lovely family, my parents. I just feel like, I'm incredibly lucky in that respect. And again, it comes back to, we're talking about like a business, university, you learn things. And you used to have these ridiculous kind of charts and models they'd give you. I don't know whether you remember, was it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? So this funny little pyramid with funny colours that you looked at the time and went, what a load of bollocks that is, kind of thing, something from the dark ages. And it's one of those things that you look back on and, kind of start off with the kind of physiological needs of, food, water, shelter, whatever, and move up, moving up to kind of, second, self-esteem. And I think that's massively, I think if you're happy with yourself and then kind of top one is self-actualization, which is a funny concept, but it's kind of, I've related to being your true self, have you done, if you're on your deathbed looking back, have you done all the things you can do to be the true you? Is that the true Richard Skerritt looking back on his life going, that was a good, I had a good run. I am very, very happy that, what I did in my life was a positive thing. And, I honestly do. And so I don't want to come across as smug because, if I used to sound that way, look at me, great, whatever. But I think, it's obviously a lot of fortune, a lot of luck and chance and whatever goes into it as well. But I've always had this personal business plan as well as a business plan in terms of where I want to be at that stage in my life. And, of course, you don't always stick to it because there's external events and everything else and things don't stick to that. But I've always had this kind of plan of where I want to be. And I kind of had to plan without the final bit. And again, we'll probably come on to this. The final bit was obviously, looking to sell part of the business, then all of the business at that, which kind of came about because there's a very clever chap who's unfortunately no longer with us, Nick Ashcroft from EMC, who I'd known for donkey's years. And, kind of a very clever chap, liked him a lot, and managed to kind of coerce me, I think through the promise of a really nice red wine, to have a chat with him. Someone wanted to invest in the business, and I'd always battered off everything, it's a great business, it's my business, I'm in control. Why on earth would I change it? It ain't broken, all this kind of stuff. And I expected him to come along and say, we've got someone who wants to give you this massive check. And I would have said, thanks very much, but I can create there's loads of stuff I can do, keep building the business, whatever. And he kind of challenged me in terms of my own personal business plan. He said, okay, I think at the time I was 53, 54. Said, so what's your exit strategy? I said, well, I haven't got one of those yet. He goes, you're a clever chap. You're this kind of, planning, whatever. Surely you've got an exit strategy. And I said, well, yeah, not yet. He said, do you think you should have one? I went, probably should. And kind of, moved it, parked it in my brain, and then spoke about kind of, where I'd got the business, obviously with the kind of biggest in the region and all this, that, and I got to that point. He said, how much bigger can you get? And I said, well, we've probably reached our kind of glass ceiling in terms of where we can get the business. Without boring in the details, it's very difficult. We'll have organic growth, but to grow by acquisition, which is the only real way in our industry you can kind of move up the echelons, it requires a lot of capital. But the FCA won't let you just borrow money because it counts against your net assets. And it's just a bit of a nightmare. So we were at this point where we could grow organically, and that was it. And he kind of challenged me. He said, would you love to see it be like, one of the biggest firms in the UK, not just in the southeast, and all those kind of things? Have you fulfilled your own potential? Have you fulfilled the potential of the business? And the sod kind of left all these thoughts in my brain, left it with me, and I was going, you know what? He's got a point. Despite the fact I was very happy and didn't want to change anything, he then followed it up with, have you ever think about it? Why do you meet these chaps, these lovely private equity chaps? And I, at the time, had a really negative impression of private equity, which I think most people do because you hear the horror stories, you don't hear the good stories. And Heidi, my wife, said, might as well have a chat kind of thing. We turned up in this room expecting these people I took a dislike to, met this really nice bunch of chaps, all incredibly clever and whatever, that we had a chat with. And I came out of the room going, bugger, this kind of, it's kind of sowed some seeds in my mind as to, and it was all about how we could take the business to the next level. It wasn't about that big check or that, whatever, which I think, for most people, they build a business up and they look forward to that big check at the end and they can take up golf and do whatever. And, I certainly didn't want to retire. It would drive me mad.
But do you think now? Because I agree. I think people start on that journey. We start on our business journey because we go, I'm gonna grow something. I'm gonna build it, and I'm gonna get that big check at the end.
Yep.
And then But then, actually, back to what you was talking about before, that we all need a purpose, and we all need. So to get to that point where you get that big check, and then what do? You go and play golf, or you sit on your, like you said, if your brain is always working in the way it does, you're always looking to move forward, and that's taken away from you, and then you go, what am I going to do now? Just sit on a beach and
exactly. Which I can't sit on a beach anyway. I'm the most. I've got the attention span of a gnat, and I get bored very easily. And I've seen so many people. I've seen people sell their businesses in the 40s or 50s, whatever. And just come to this point where everything they've focused on work-wise comes to a grinding halt. Okay, shit. What am I going to do now? And I think I've got the perfect balance now because we've taken on a new chief exec, which is my choice to, so I could step back from. What kind of happened is when the private equity company invested, suddenly it became a bit more bureaucratic, which it has to be, I guess, rather than being a privately owned smaller company, as soon as you've got private equity and everything else as well, it suddenly becomes more meetings and more this and more accountability and all this kind of stuff. And that's not a part of the job I like, and so I think it's kind of that was the only real negative for me, was the fact of suddenly it became more bureaucratic. So I lost contact a bit. I stopped dealing with the clients and had less kind of the involvement I liked, and had that, and I didn't really like it. And we had a chance to, cut a long story short, take on the absolute best CEO we could have. He was a chap that built Quilter up from nothing to be the second biggest in the country in 10 years. Wow. Phenomenal chap. And for some really bizarre reason, had a meeting with him, got really on rail, and he took the job. So we've got the absolute best chief exec you could possibly. We got a fantastic team. We're batting, well above our weight kind of thing in terms of if you look at a smaller regional firm. But we will in 2 years' time we will be a national firm. We'll cover the whole country and everything else as well. But we couldn't have done that without having the people and the resources. Yeah. So it's, I think, as well, having that journey with kind of that glass ceiling, when we talk about the fact I always want to go forward, I'd probably hit that, and I was probably just getting to the point where I would have gone a bit stale. So this for me is, it's massively exciting, and it's kind of reinvigorated me.
Almost, yeah. I was going to say, almost got that, like you said, that hunger back. Like, let's go back to when you first started.
Yep.
You've got that, and you've got to go out and get that bit. It's almost like it forward line to where we are now, and almost like a new start to the journey.
It really is, because it's the next level. Yeah. So I'd done level 1 for 33 years. Got to the point where it was it's a fantastic business. It's I'm very, very fortunate financially and whatever that I've got I wasn't left needing in that kind of level, so it wasn't about the the big check or whatever, and it really wasn't. But the fact that we could move to that next level, Skerritts is we'll have offices in Scotland, Manchester, North East, we're everywhere. It's going to become we've already taken over 9 or 10 other companies with a load more in the pipeline, so it's really happening. And I think I'm enormously proud that my business that I started in my in my spare room, it was my shared room, with some ex kind of polytechnic dads, and that's where we started. So to see that happen is just really, really satisfying. And again, it probably comes down to the Maslow's thing of the kind of the what makes you happy past a certain point of when you're fed, watered, and everything else as well. It's those kind of things there that I suppose drive you on. And
it's so much to take away from me. There's so many points I'm looking at with that. One key thing I think you mentioned with the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that actually in life, the authenticity and being yourself.
Yep.
Like you said, again, I'll go back to 100 odd episodes, people I've spoke to, things I've learned, I guess mainly from speaking to people on the podcast. And the key is that actually we've lived a life true to ourselves.
Yep.
And if you read, there's a book by a woman called Bronnie Ware, a lot of people have heard of it, The 5 Regrets of the Dying. She was a palliative nurse.
Yep.
And she talks, and the biggest regret of the dying was I didn't live a life true to myself.
Yeah.
That is the biggest regret.
And that ties totally into that self-actualisation, isn't it? When you kind of read into what that final little tip on the pyramid is, that self-actualisation is being true to, achieving, being the best you can, and being true to yourself. And, I'm in an industry where you look back at the 80s, you looked at financial services, it was rotten. Just going back a bit on that, when I started in the industry. So when I left college, I decided with American Express I was not going to work for a big company. I've got nothing against American Express. They use their cards happily. My wife used them even more. But it's a great company. It just wasn't for me. There's a certainty, I couldn't join the civil service or whatever. That is just not for me. I can't be doing that. I need to have that element where I'm in control. I don't do bosses very well. I've never had a boss. Well, I've had in various jobs in the past, but it's never gone particularly well. I think when I was at Polytechnic, I probably got sacked from 3 or 4 kind of whatever jobs just for whatever wimpy and everything else as well. It didn't suit me. So I was kind of looking at thinking, okay, what do I want to do? And I kind of looked at various things. And my friends were getting proper jobs with IBM or, companies doing the kind of, I suppose, the traditional perfect thing to do. One of my friends went on to be a stockbroker who I spoke to probably 3 years ago. I said, wish I'd done what you'd done, because he ended up doing what I did 20 years later and saying, okay, look back, and he was the blue chip stockbroker and everything else as well. So I didn't want to do any of that. And I kind of found myself in a situation where, okay, I've finished college, I've got a bit of debt, I've got, basically to find some money, and I've got to decide what I want to do in life, because as the Baz Luhrmann song goes, some of them, best people don't know what they want to do when they're 21, 20. I had not a clue what I wanted to do. I knew I was good with numbers, and I knew I wanted to earn good money. So not because I'm materialistic necessarily. I'm not saying it's a bad thing if you are, but I just wanted to earn some good money. I wanted to be successful. I wanted, I suppose, replicate what my dad had done, and I kind of say look up to him enormously, and I wanted to be someone he'd look at and say, well done, son, kind of thing. That things like that are still important to me to the day, and getting that. So I was kind of a bit stuck. And I remember reading the Evening Argus, as it was, I still call that now, and looking at the job section. Okay, better find a job. And all I had to think, I said, graduates, job, whatever. It didn't say what it was. OTE 18,000 a year. And at the time, I think as a graduate, you did well if you were on 12,000.
Yeah.
I had no idea what OTE was. I just ignored that. But 18 grand a year, brilliant, fantastic. Phoned up. Of course, they said, yeah, come along. And met this chap. It was a direct sales force with a company called Royal Life at the time. I had no idea what it was. And said, yeah, basically, yeah, come in here, you should earn £18,000 a year. You're, basically advising clients and this, that, and the other. I said, great. When do I start? He said, well, you start tomorrow if you want. It was literally that kind of commission only. Wow. Totally naive. No, they took on everyone that could string a sentence together and had a kind of shiny suit. And said, fine, I'll give it a go. And I think, again, probably one of those kind of moments that changes your life is they kind of, in those days, it was all about, and it's dreadful now, but cold calling. So you literally were given a phone book and said, right, this is your script, phone up. So me being, whatever I was, 21, 22 at the time, so I'll give this a go. First couple of people told me where to go in no uncertain terms, which is probably, totally deserved. And third person I phoned up, lovely lady, said, actually, I've got some money to invest, can you pop round and see me? So went to my sales manager and said, got this lady who wants to see me. He said, can I come round this afternoon? He said, well, you're not trained yet, you're not whatever. Go and see her anyway, just use it as kind of experience. I was like, oh, great, what about if she wants to invest some money? He said, well, here's a form, just fill this out, get to write a cheque, whatever. She might do a thing called PEPs at the time, the predecessor to ISAs, £2,400, whatever. So I came back with a cheque for £105,000 kind of thing. This lady had done it sounds awful now. It turns out I actually did a good job for her, but that was purely accidental at the time. And she stayed a client for many, many years and was very happy. And got back, and this is on a time when at college I probably had like $3,000 a year to spending money throughout the year. So you've just earned £3,200 commission on your first day. Wow. I went, blimey. Or words to that effect. I thought, this is good. I like this. Yeah. I then had a friend of mine, this before mobile phones, and I met him for lunch. He goes, what are you doing now? He said, doing this bit of pension. I need a pension. So come and do one. Signed him up, earned another £500. And it's like, so I'd earned nearly £4,000 in my first day of this job going, this is fantastic.
Wow.
And obviously it wasn't like that every day after that, and I did actually do my training. So I really enjoyed it. I actually got really interested in the investment side of things, found it really interesting, the stock markets and all this kind of stuff, which was relatively new to me, but hated the culture. It was literally sell anything you could to anyone, which I refused to get involved in. Fell out with my sales manager because I wouldn't do the kind of stuff they had, or wouldn't do this, that and the other. And spent 6 months there. Very, very painful. Did okay. But you know what? I actually love the industry, but I hate the culture of the direct sales forces. So I stupidly went and set up my own. And,
so that was it, as early as that?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's probably 5 years too early. But I then went, I had nothing. I had no clients. I had absolutely nothing at all. But decided I was going to set up a business. Spent the next 5 years struggling hugely. It was a kind of, my mates would take me out and buy me a beer as a favour kind of thing. That's what it was. And it got to the point where I think I'd kind of done it, and I'm a tenacious little sod, so I'd kind of built up a bit. I remember at the time I had a debt of £30,000 I built up with Lloyds Bank, which those days was quite a lot of money. It's a lot of money these days. And got to the point my bank manager, who was very supportive, helped me, put a new bank manager in. I got this phone call. I said, right, you've got an overdraft. Overdraft's a short term, not long term. I want it paid off within a month. And my response was, well, if I could afford to pay it off within a month, I wouldn't have it in the first place, would I? Don't care, blah, 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 blah. And I'd never, really asked anyone for help or whatever. And I got this point where, shit, I'm in a bit of trouble here kind of thing. It's quite a sobering moment. But I knew that things were looking better, and I knew that, we were kind of, I'd had a few tough years, but I was getting there. So I went to my dad and said, can you do us a favour? Can you lend me this money for 3 months? I promise I'll pay it off. He went, absolutely, totally, really nice, believe me. He hated Lloyds Bank at the time as well, as I did. So he paid this off, closed the account. I didn't even have a bank account at the time because Lloyds closed the account. And I remember walking down Portland Road, walking in there. NatWest had a bank manager at the time, so I need to open a bank account. And he's like, what's your credit history, whatever. I was a nightmare for any bank to take on. And he said, let's have a chat. Really nice old fella. And he said, okay, what are you doing? He said, tell you what, I'll give you a bank account. I probably shouldn't, but I'll give you a bank account. And I can't give you any credit or overdraft or whatever, but, you have all the stuff you need. And I went, you know what? I've had my dad lend me the money. I've had this nice chap at NatWest open a bank account for me. Right, it's up to you. You got yourself in this mess. Bloody get yourself out of it. And I think it kind of it's probably a bit of a wake up call as well. And from that point, I'd work 20-hour days. Without exaggeration, I'd go, right, I'm going to sort myself out of this mess. And from then on in, I paid my dad off within the 3 months. And it kind of it went well. Got a bit of luck along the way.
Wow.
So that was the start of the kind of the success part of things.
There's such a great lesson for people, I guess, for so many people listening, because there'll be so many people on part of their journey that maybe are up against the wall and are in that situation. And this is one of the reasons I love doing this podcast and having these type of conversations, because people will look at what you've achieved and where you are right now. Yeah. But actually, let's go right back to that beginning where you are and the stuff you've come through to get. Yeah. It's not been like, oh, you know what, I started my own business and here I am 33 years later with a private equity investment and I'm flying, I'm going to go national, etc. And it's actually all of the whole of that process over those 30 years.
Tell you what, the old saying, and I probably use it more than I should because I hate buzzwords, but it's saying, was it success is built in the hard times, failure is built in the good times. Yeah. And I really think that, and again, we've been guilty of that. When we've had good times 10 years ago, whatever, you maybe take your eye off the ball a bit because things are going well and you don't stick to that business plan when you should, or you don't look at costs when you do, or everything, it's just going along, things are nice. You don't do the kind of good business planning you should. But in the bad times, you bloody do. You have to. And you look at those and you put things in place which are, things that are always going to be there, but once they're in place, they're really good things to have in a business. But I kind of think people who start off in a business as a success on day one probably don't have the, you need the hard times to kind of maybe mentally change you to, have that focus, but also just to keep you so that you go, what am I going to put in place to make that successful? But it's very, very easy with a successful business, and we see them, quite a lot, where it's always gone okay, but as soon as they have a big bad, whatever, they can finish the business, and it's very easy with things like, if you look at maybe restaurants, they start off there, the flavour of the month, great, everything's good, whatever, they last a year, because everything from day one, they haven't had, things in place and whatever to do that. And I think you almost need, say, that apprenticeship as a person, but also as a business to kind of get that thing in place and give you that drive to, I don't want to be there again. I want to buy all my mates a pint back to thank them for the times they buy me one. And I think it's, it certainly did me no harm long term.
Yeah. And look, a perfect, I guess, example of that is COVID, right? Not many people had that in their business plan, I'm sure. But something like that comes and smacks you in the face. Yeah. And actually, like you said, no matter what business, some businesses thrived in that period, some businesses really struggled, actually. But the ones that had a bit of resilience, looked at their business and went, well, actually, I've got to put X, Y, and Z in place to come back and bounce back from this. Yep. You had to look at their business, and a lot of businesses actually fell by the wayside because they didn't have that resilience, or hadn't been through them tough times to know how to combat that, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I always look at things as well. So when times are tough in our business, part of me is thinking our competitors are going to find it tough, and we're probably in a better position. So I kind of almost look at it as, we'll just get an extra kind of, notch up compared to our competitors, because I think we do things better. So I'd always class that as a bit of, okay, we can kind of, we can build the business a bit better, or there might be opportunities that exist. But with COVID, I mean, my first thing was, right, let's do a plan. Let's have a plan for this. How is this? Because, I mean, it seems hard now. I mean, we went through a thing with COVID where we were emailing our clients every single day. Because the markets, the US markets are down 30%. You've lost if you're all, not our clients, so all US, but lots of people who have the Vanguard US fund or whatever, 30% wiped off, global Armageddon. But more important than that, are you going to be alive next week? We were all terrified, weren't we? Yeah. Now, I remember at the time, the crazy things you look back on now, of, we wouldn't send letters to clients, because we didn't want them getting COVID off the post and the envelopes and whatever, stuff like that. You obviously didn't see clients and whatever. Yeah. We all started using Zoom, I'd never heard of Zoom, and suddenly it became an absolute godsend. We'd use, what was it before that? What was this? Skype, never ever worked. But, it also as well, but there's lots of stuff there that kind of benefited us as a business. We had to adapt. And again, it's one of those things, in the hard times, you get some of the, successes built there. We've moved now to being a lot more efficient and everything else as well. Yeah. So, we treated that as a, our clients were terrified they were going to die. They were terrified their savings were going to be wiped out. We didn't know what was going to happen, and we didn't know either.
Yeah.
And we had to take a really bold view on things. So, we have an investment team that manages, billion or something pounds worth of people's money, and you can look at that going, okay, this is when people really need us. In a rising market, everyone can make money. That's the easy bit. That's the easy bit where, a monkey could be at a keyboard, could buy anything, it'd all go up. When times are like this is when you have to really take some bold decisions. And some of our competitors went, okay, we're going all to cash. The markets of the world's in a bad place and everything else as well. And we spent hours, days, weeks, whatever it was, thinking, okay, what is going to happen from this? What is going to happen from a purely financial point of view? Put all the, are we going to be alive and everything else as well? But let's look at the world markets. Okay, there's some winners out of this. If you've got shares in Amazon or Sky, Zoom or whatever, there's winners. The tech companies are going to do well. They're going to come out of that. You wouldn't really want to be an airline or a cinema or a restaurant or anything else as well. So you can there would definitely be some winners. Yeah. And we looked at that, markets down, whatever. We said, you know what? This is a single issue problem. It's a big single issue. It's a virus that's killing millions of people, but it's a single issue thing. What's going to happen? And we have to take a view. You know what? We think they'll find either a vaccine or a cure or something there which is going to make this better. So at the moment we're looking down this worst case scenario. It won't be as bad as that. So rather than going into cash and being whatever, we actually went slightly more, things would pick up, and we actually ended up having a really good year for all our clients, which was fantastic. But it was a bold move to do. But you look back on it and it's kind of obvious. Take away the sentiment, the emotion, everything. Yeah, okay, things are really down, but things will get better. Things will improve. People are still going to... The world's wealth is not going to go away.
Because I guess a couple of things. As a businessman, got to be an optimist, right?
Yeah.
Especially, I guess, within your industry, in your world, there's got to be that air of optimism that you've got to be able to...
It has to be tempered with realism as well, though.
Right, okay.
Because you see lots of people that are overly optimistic. I mean, one of the big things recently is cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and whatever. There's a lot of optimists in that. I know someone that in our industry, very clever chap, sold his business for millions, invested it all in Bitcoin, and pretty much lost 80% of it. There's people out there that you just go, crazy. Wow, it's one of those life lessons, isn't it? If it sounds too good to be true, it normally is, and have a balanced approach to everything. I think in that everyone was going to get really rich on Bitcoin. I've never bought Bitcoin or whatever in my life,
me neither.
And I never will. It's not real. I think you have to be optimistic. You have to believe you'll get to where you want to go. Otherwise, give up now, kind of thing.
And it's, like you said, that gets you through those tough times as well, doesn't it? When you are up against the wall, you're going to believe that actually this is a storm and this will pass. And I think like your analogy, looking at it like that from COVID's point of view, actually looking at it rather than going, God, this is an absolute disaster and let's move all this over here. Actually, let's look at it quite logically. I'm assuming looking at actually this is a single problem, a big problem, but a single problem that actually we can move out.
Yeah, if you take the sentiment away, and obviously, it was, and we are where we are now, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just further problems have replaced it.
Yeah. And that's it. There's always going to be them challenges. I'm really. Let's interject now with our next life in 60 seconds. We've sort of delved into COVID and a couple of other bits, but talk to me. Give me 60 seconds. A challenge that you faced in your career, in your life, in business, and what you learned from that experience.
Okay, probably one of the biggest, whether it's a challenge or not, but one of the biggest things that happened is we had an ex-member of staff that left us, went somewhere else, took them to court, won a court case, and then came back at us and decided to have a really kind of spurious claim against us. And without going into detail, because it probably shouldn't, but so we ended up being involved in this court case that 100% we were right. I'm a very honest person. I was telling you the truth from everything, whatever. And I can't remember what the court said. There's sometimes people's minds get muddled when they're under pressure in court, which basically cover up for the fact they're lying. So we went through this really very expensive court case. It probably the biggest mentally thing has happened to me. It was I found the whole thing dreadful, and being in court every day, and we kind of approached it saying, right, we're going to have the best solicitors, the best barrister, the best everything else, and went there, and we got 6 or 7 witnesses that were all backing me up against this one chap, and thinking that's the right thing to do. I've got total faith in the legal system. And we had a deputy judge, this lady who just took a dislike to me, felt really sorry for this poor chap who's all on his own, who absolutely played the sympathy card, and she voted in his favour, or judged in his favour. And the injustice and the anger of that is something that I will never get over. It's just so wrong. It cost me personally a huge amount of money, and which I can, that's business kind of thing. But the fact of the injustice of that, and there's absolutely nothing I could do about it. And the fact of this person who by then I hated more than anything else in the world, because he was an absolute chancer and he'd done it before and he'd lied all the way through, basically won and walked off with a big cheque. And I think that's I think it's taught me to pick your battles, because the lawyers did say at the time, settle before you go to court, whatever. And I was so confident that, the right would come through and everything, whatever. And, despite being told, well, the legal system doesn't always work that way and you've got to weigh it up and do whatever. And I would say one thing I love, and that is, if you can help yourself, never, ever go to court. Because it's the most painful, awful experience. It's completely, it affected our business, because my eye was off the ball. It was obviously focused on that. It affected me personally. It affected everything. And an absolutely dreadful experience. But
because I guess as well, at that point, it's really difficult. When there's injustice there and you feel like let's go back to being at school, intimidation, whatever them things look like. I'm not going to let that person take the piss out of me. I know I'm in the right, so I'm going to... So then, actually, you're a really logical person. Sometimes emotions get involved, and actually that will take over. And you go, I'm confident that we're going to win this because I know I've done the right thing.
You just assume that the right will prevail. It's and also as well, you've got 6 or 7 people all with the same story against one person. You'd have thought that person, these other people were respected people. There's and you just cannot. To this day, I try not to think about it. You cannot fathom how this. And you've got one person there that makes that decision. And he says, "Okay," she said, "I disbelieve all of you. I believe him. I'm going to do it." And he's like. It's the fact of, I think, as well, I like to be in control of situations, and I had no control, in there, because that was down to her. And you walk away there, and it took me, months to get over that.
It's just, I guess, it's just a kick in the teeth, and it's a punch in the face where you just go, and again. In business, people have said, you know what, if I get through the day and I've only been punched in the face 3 times, I'm doing all right, I'm having a good day. So we face so many different things in business, but something like that is it does, like I said, it's more, I guess, the emotional drain on you that
it's the unfairness. It's I've always led, I always have this thing, and again, something I learned from my dad, is people would always say about him, although he's a salesman, he wasn't really a salesman. He was just a chap. They knew that his word was true. Everything, a really good, honest, and I've always tried to say, hopefully I can, I've always done the best thing for my clients every single time I've dealt with them. I haven't gone, okay, we can make more money doing that and whatever. Of course you could, but we've never done that. I put my head in the pillow at night and go, I've had I've done a good thing, and I just want to go through life, people being fair. So when that comes through, and you've got the legal system helping them get to that, it's just awful. But
because again, back to your dad and things, and back to business in general. The one thing I remember first getting into business. One thing I promised myself would be that everything I do is with integrity.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
a big word for me. Everything, like people buy people, whatever industry we're in, where people buy from people. So I always promised that. Like you said, I'm at 44 now. I'm well aware that not everyone's going to like me, and I'm okay with that, which I never used to be. But I am confident I can walk into a room and people won't go, he's fucked someone over, or he's done that. So
you haven't got to look over your shoulder.
No, exactly. Like as you mentioned, you can put your head on a pillow at night, knowing you've done the right thing. And I'm okay with that.
Sometimes there's again, when you're building the business up, there's that temptation that you could, in our industry, it would have been easy to maybe do things slightly differently and come out there with more money at the end of the month. But I could never do that. There's no way in the world I could do that. And again, when we had the investors come in, the private equity, my biggest questions for them are, what's going to happen going forward? Are my clients still going to be treated the way we treat them now? Because I'm fortunate enough that I can be, I don't need a bigger check for there's companies out there that you'd never sell your business. Some people do because they give a bigger check. I'd never want to do that. I haven't spent the last 30-something years treating my customers really well to then have someone do the exact opposite of that. And it's really, really important. And
because it is there then, I guess listening to you talk and listening about your story, that you've built something that's your baby and you've grown it to the stage. And like you said, some people will get it and they've sold it and they walk away into the sunset and that's fine for them.
Yep.
But almost like, I guess the question for you is how important is legacy to you? Like, is it something that you've built this and you don't want it to be that your business is merged, taken over and gone down a completely different route against
massive
all your
input.
values?
That was always a kind of with the next scale, with the next level of the business, with the new chief exec as well, he is 100% on the same page as me, our CFO and everyone as well. We want that to carry on being, and we set ourselves out as being, we're never going to be the biggest, we're never going to be the cheapest, never going to be whatever, but we will be the ones and our new CEO says the best in the country, and it's the best in every single way, for clients first, staff second, us lot third, which it's easy to say, but I honestly think we do that, and I think part of your success is treating clients well. But the business, it's easier, isn't it? If you treat your clients well, they're going to stick with you. They're going to bring other people in. It's not rocket science. Do it that way, and you can make a quick buck. And I've seen many companies in our industry make a quick buck. They all played a lot of golf, but I'd rather be where I am now because I've played the long game of doing things properly. And it's a great industry to be in if you do it well.
Yeah, I love that. And then I guess just still touching on that, like over 30 odd years of running a business, which how many businesses we can go down to statistics, how many businesses failed that first year. I guess talk to me, especially that beginning part, which is fascinating, and learning about that and those struggles. But talk to me about some of the other challenges and stuff and other pain points, I guess, that you've had over 30 years of running a business and growing it from you to what you said about 80 staff.
We'll probably a bit more than that now.
Talk to me about some of those.
I think probably a lot of my pain points, I kind of got them all out of the way in the first few years, and that was incredibly painful. But we kind of got those out of the way. I think you're always going to have. There's always going to be things, external forces that no matter how good your business plan is, no matter how determined and hard working and everything you are, there's always going to be external forces. So changes in the industry, or a big competitor suddenly sets up, in Brighton, whatever, which can be a bit of a pain. We've outlasted all of them, so that's good. Things like that. I mean, occasionally we have very few clients leave us, but occasionally a client will leave, and I take that so personally. I take that as, absolutely do. And, it might be a client's moved up north and they want to deal with someone up there, but I still take that, hang on, well, I take that very, very personally. I think I've always, it's my name above the door, I've always treated it, everything there, I take it really, really personally.
Because you care, right?
If there's, one of the clients there that deals with one of the advisors that's unhappy, I will phone them up. I haven't met them before, but I just, I want to phone them up. Tell me what's wrong. Can we fix this? If we can, we'd really like to. Fully understand if you've made your mind up, but still do that. And it's, it is my, my name above the door, and I take it all personally. So,
wow. Well, I'm keen as well. Often one of the main reasons for starting a podcast was trying to unlock or define what success is and it's different for everyone. That's certainly one of the things I've learned. But the caveat to that is obviously failure. And running a business and going through difficult times, pain points and stuff. What's your relationship like with failure?
I'm really bad at failure. I know that, people say, you can't do anything without making mistakes or without failing. You learn from it and move on kind of thing. But I am not good with failure. I kind of, obviously everyone wants everything they do to work. I think sometimes people are more relaxed than I am. They expect certain things not to work. I'm not great with failure. I want everything to work. And I'll probably take it personally or blame myself if it doesn't work. Even if it's not my fault, I'll still try and do that. So, of course, running a business, there's going to be lots of things that don't work. There's going to be lots of mini failures along the way. Hopefully, nothing that's kind of mortal. We've had lots of things. I can look back on things that we've done wrong, but I think it's a definition whether if you try something that doesn't necessarily work, it may be a case of, we've tried that. That's good. We've kind of learned from that or done whatever. So I won't necessarily class that as a failure because I think that's another step forward. But when you do something that's just outright failure, I guess that's
a really interesting take on it, because I guess there's a 2 point. Like, I would say, like for me, I guess it's the narrative around failure for me that we need to potentially change, in the sense that I would class the salon as a big failure. I closed it, I lost money, and it was but 100% it was the right thing for me to do at the time, and I have learned a huge amount from that. But I guess what the key is, and listening to you talk as well, it's just about actually being able to try different things and being okay with the fact that actually if it doesn't work, that's fine, but what I will learn from that. It doesn't necessarily mean that because if I guess the point is, if there's a fear of failure, you don't want it to fail. So, no one does. Let's be honest. Who wants to fail? No one. But actually, if we because you wouldn't try anything new potentially if you go, if I make a mistake or that doesn't quite go out according to plan. It's being able to adapt and go, okay, we'll try something else.
So I think, again, I mean, if we take on our senior member staff and they're rubbish and we have to kind of get rid of them, I'd class that as a failure, and I hate that. I take that as a, it doesn't sit comfortably with me. But if we try something new in terms of, I think the reason our business has done well compared to, if I look back to when property started, so the business was running okay, we probably had 10 other businesses similar size to us in Brighton Hove, and I knew all, as a small community, knew them all, and probably safe to say probably only 1 or 2 of those are still in business. We've kind of moved up there, and I look back on that and say, we just tried to do things differently. We tried to kind of look at the next stage, have the business plan there, and we tried lots of stuff, and lots of marketing. We're heavily into the marketing, on the radio, and did some TV stuff and all that kind of stuff there, which, not all of that worked. But it's all part of the plan, so we're fine. They kind of got us to where we want to go. So trying new stuff and it doesn't work, I wouldn't necessarily class that as failure. It's just part of the overall thing of, we gave it a go. Let's keep going. But sometimes, you do things and say, and no one likes to fail, do they?
No. And I think that's it. Look, I talk about it on here a lot, but not in the sense that, whatever I do next, I don't fail out. I don't want to fail to learn more stuff. I'm okay with actually let's learn other ways. Like this, for example, I've learned so much from having these type of conversations. It's very cathartic for me. It's an education, right? So I'm very fortunate. But it's just about, I guess, being okay with the sense that, look, I don't want to fail. No one wants to. But if things don't quite go right, I'll take a learning from that, and I'll go and do
that's the thing. I think we say that to our kids quite a lot. If they do something wrong, learn from it, move on. Don't fess. Whatever. Okay, that's happened. You can't change the past. That's one of those strange things that someone said to me. It's the most simple concept was you cannot change the past, so don't worry about it. And as soon as your brain goes, you know what? I can't change that. I cannot change that. Okay, there's nothing I can do. Whether it's being a drunken idiot on a night out where you go, whatever, or doing something wrong, or spending too much money on there, whatever it is, you can't change that. And if you can't change it, don't fret about it. Just move on, learn from that, don't do it again. Obviously, being a drunken idiot on one I've done many times, and you still regret it.
That could be a whole other podcast.
Absolutely, If only I could remember it. But I think you have to kind of. There's always going to be things you're not going to be perfect. And again, if you expect perfection, you're always going to be disappointed.
That's such a key message. Because how many people will be listening that are thinking about starting their own business but won't because it's not quite right. The market's a little bit like this or whatever. There's always going to be a reason not to do something. Right?
And again, it goes back to the thing: if you start a business in a bad time, that's a great time. Not at the time, but afterwards, that's a great time to do it. That's when you get things right because you have to. You haven't got the luxury of things being easy. Well,
this is one we do that conversation. Kind of often chuck this around when we turn. I'm really keen if you could go back to a specific moment over the period, and change it. What would it be?
I guess don't go to court.
Okay. Yeah.
So still very raw. Yeah. I think if I could change how I've kind of built the business up, to be honest, I wouldn't change an awful lot, just because I think the things that, the failures have shaped how we are. We've learnt from them. That's helped us grow stronger as we've done that. Probably what I would have done is, when lovely Nick came to see me and said, do you want to change things? I probably should have, because he tried for a few years before that. I wish I'd kind of maybe had the conversation earlier, because I think I'm really enjoying this stage of the business. The business is really improved because we've got massive resource now, and all the kind of stuff we couldn't do before, just because of that, or the people and everything else as well. And again, time of life, I'm 56 now, or 56, 57. It'd be nice to have that extra couple of years of enjoying life now with a bit less pressure as well. So probably. And I think it's very difficult when it's your business to even think about having other people involved. And I go back to the thing I said, I've never had a boss. Suddenly now, when you have private equity, who are big shareholders in the company, they're kind of your bosses. They don't more
people to answer to. Right?
They don't deal with, they don't tinker day to day. They don't micromanage, don't whatever, because they haven't got the time and inclination to do that. But at the end of the day, you've still got someone there that you have to answer to in board meetings and everything else as well. And I think there was a bit of a fear of, I'm not going to be very good at this, but if you get the right people, it's fine. It's nice to have that, because I kind of feel, I've had a fantastic team. We've built the business up, and I certainly haven't done it on my own. I've done it with fantastic people. But again, that pyramid, you're the person at the top that all the buck stops with, and everything else as well. Having really, really good people, far better people than me involved in the business, that can come in and share that burden. I'm really enjoying it. So I probably would have done that to say, listen to Nick a few years earlier, had that conversation, and be a couple of years further down the line. But
that's really and actually nice, I guess, for people to listen to, because like you said, actually private equity probably gets a bit of a bad rap, really.
And there are some bad private equity people out there.
Sure,
it absolutely is, yeah.
I'm sure. But to hear a story actually and listen to a founder and someone that's sitting in front of us now and talking about a really positive experience that actually it's enhanced the position that where they're taking their baby that they've built up into something bigger than they could have ever imagined. Like, I guess when you go back to when you first started your business, was it? I'm going to grow it to that. So where was the in that plan? Where was the?
I mean, I had this plan of where I want to get the business, and I'm really kind of financially based, so I'm really kind of focused on the financial security aspect. When I sold the business, if I sold it, if it didn't pass down to the kids, I think we all have this romantic dream that I've got lots of kids, they'd take it over and it'd stay a family business. In reality, it's probably never going to happen. It's probably a good thing it doesn't happen, because the kind of typical thing about next generations and whatever run things differently. So I think from that point of view, I wanted it to be something that, my retirement or semi-retirement, whatever, I had the option to do whatever I want, whether I carry on working or do charity work or do whatever. I've kind of decided when the next stage goes ahead, because the private equity tend to be around for a bit, then it moves next level private equity, and it's kind of how it moves up. So it's all a kind of preset plan, and there'll be a point where my working life will either stop altogether or will be minimal, and again, having the option to do all the things I want. And I certainly don't want to kind of I'm not going to sit and watch Countdown and take up crying green bowls, but I want the options, to do all the stuff I want to do. So that was always a kind of, that aspect of, and I think everyone has the same, don't they? They just want to be in a situation whereby they've got enough, and I think enough's a good word. Enough to do everything you want, then you're a very, very happy person. And I've just got to get myself around to getting that stage where I say, I'm happy with what I've got, rather than always wanting that next thing.
Intrigue, because obviously, again, back to the thing about throughout that journey trying to be in the moment and appreciating, being grateful for where you are right now. Like, you go back at the start when you're first starting out, and you go, right, in 10 years' time you're going to have X amount of staff, and you're going to be doing it. You'd have gone, God, that'd be great to get there. And then you're there, and you go, you're constantly. I always find this quite difficult, because there's always going to be, because of how your mind works and because of our, as entrepreneurs, business owners, we're generally like that. There's got to be something. I've always got to be striving for something.
I'll be happy when.
Be happy when, It's key not to, for me, what I'm trying to learn and trying to get better at is I'm not going to delay my happiness until I get to that point.
Yeah.
It's about being happy where I am, being grateful where I am right now.
Yeah.
And what, because you say about what's enough, what is enough? Like, because financially, potentially, you've got enough.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
And don't
I'm
need
very,
it.
very fortunate. I've got enough, so I don't need the money. I don't need, or the cars, or the house, all that kind of stuff. And so I'm very, very lucky in that respect that I've got that. But you still have this mind where you're still chasing stuff. But it's that point where you say to yourself, let's enjoy the moment. And there's a film. I'm rubbish with films, but the one where the chap has the ability to fast forward his life. I don't know if you remember the film. And it's kind of, the film is a bit rubbish, but the concept was great.
Yeah.
So he gets to the point where he goes, you're going to get a promotion in a year's time, and that would solve all his money worries. He could buy the new car, the house. So he fast forwards his life to a year's time. Then he doesn't get the promotion. Then he and it's kind of stuff of. It's a really good way of kind of conceptualizing that. Always waiting for I'll be happy when I get the new car or the new house or the new whatever, when that happens. And it's such a shame, and we're all guilty of it. Thinking that something in the future is going to make us happier, when we should look at ourselves and you know what, everything's great now, and enjoy this moment now, because nothing's going to make
Well, but this again, look, but the whole concept of the podcast. What's come out recently, especially the rebound for this, that's why it's so brilliant to have you on this series, is that for me, helping the world, the tagline has been helping the world to see success differently, right?
Yep.
So, because it's exactly that, like there's not one person I've spoke to actually who's come on financially free or whatever level you've got to, that actually you go, that's the moment where I've gone, I'm really happy.
Yep.
Like, you've looked back over the period and you've gone, it is growing the business. Like you talk about them early stages and tough and people buying you a pint and stuff like that. But actually, you know what? I agree, and and you still see the passion. Like sitting opposite you now, you can still see the passion of you talking about your business. Yeah. And like almost like reignite with this new phase and this new stage is going. That's got to be happiness.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And I know I
need that bit. I don't, that's one thing I kind of look at going forward and say, I know I need that. So I'm invigorated now with, the building the business to from a regional to a national. Massively exciting. I mean, what a fantastic, I've got the best job in the world, because I've got lots of people doing all the stuff I don't want to do. And I get involved in the sexy stuff, and they pay me for it. It's fantastic. So when that kind of next stage after that, because obviously that's not going to be forever, I've got to kind of think about that and say, I need to keep that. I don't want to kind of step back from that and go, I really miss that. I've got to have something I can do. And again, planning. I'm kind of thinking there's stuff I've got. And again, I think I'll be in a really fortunate position where I'll be okay, and I really want to kind of do it. There's a good friend of mine, Chris Goodman. You've seen what he's done with the Focus Foundation. I look at that and say, what a fantastic thing he's done, and I'd love to do something similar. Again, he's very fortunate in terms of he's been very successful in business, totally deserved everything he's got, but he's now focusing his attention on going forward on doing that. And I look at that and go, what a great thing to do. That's got to be even more satisfying than the business stuff. Doing that, because you can look at what that achieves.
100%. Chris has been on, and we had a really good conversation. And it was again fascinating talking about that, because again, similar to yourself, like built financial security, financial wealth, and actually recognising that as great as that is and as comfortable as that makes you financially, that's not where your purpose is and your drive. And because I'm keen to what was back to them early stages. And along the journey, was your driver that financial game? Was it that I'm going to earn X amount of money? I'm going to
probably less of the kind of monetary numbers, and more of the fact I wanted to be seen as successful. That's
but in whose eyes? In society,
my
peers,
dad, my family, my wife, my kids, the people that matter. I don't, I'm kind of the opinion I don't care what most people think. And you kind of said you get to the age where you realise not everyone's going to like you, and I'm sure I kind of think I've always handled myself okay. I'm sure I've made a few kind of people that for whatever reason haven't liked me. Probably goes back to those drunken nights we spoke about. But those people don't matter. That's all white noise. Don't care about that. But the people who really matter to you. I wanted to be successful in those. I'm very competitive. I play my 8-year-old daughter at Monopoly. I have to win. I don't let her win. No matter how many teams there are, I have to win. Stuff like that. I'm kind of very, very competitive, and I think that's a fun. We joke about all the Skerritts, my kids and my nieces and nephews and whatever. We're lucky. We've got a fantastic. We've got 28 people coming for Christmas lunch this year.
Wow.
And we get on
Love that.
absolutely brilliantly well, but we're all competitive. If we're playing pool or darts or whatever, everyone plays to win. There's no niceties. Well, there is, but it's this real kind of competitive nature there. So I think I've always had this, and I've always wanted to be. And again, I think when I didn't go down, good friends of mine, went down the traditional kind of job routes, or my friend that became a stockbroker, and you look at that going, you know what, I've taken a different path. I've got to prove I chose the right path. I've got to be more successful than them.
But then is there sort of question, again, back to where you see successful in the sense that you've grown a business that's based on a finance, because people would look at you from a financial point of view and go, you've built a financially successful business, and that's potentially a lot of business generally. That's the metric that we generally measure success, right?
Yep.
I guess the question to you over the years is how your own measure of success is that based on that financial performance?
I remember going back when times are hard. I remember one of my measures of success. I had a Ford Escort that cost me 150 quid at the time. It'd been written off 3 times by insurance companies, 4 different colour panels, whatever. The first time I went in there, I could fill the petrol tank up and be confident my car would work. I honestly, to this day, I'll never forget treating that as, Skerritt, you're doing okay. And that was I love that. And it's kind of, it's one of those strange moments that I'll never forget. Yeah. Because I had no money. I'd go in there sometimes and I'd check what the minimum amount of petrol you could put in. It really was that level. I'd go to the cash point expecting it to say clear off kind of thing. So just getting that and thinking, I've got a full tank of petrol here and I've earned it myself. That was a seismic moment. It was those
the wins, and it's trying. I guess back to what you said before about being in the moment and actually appreciating where you are at that time. Like you said, like that. We again, Maslow's hierarchy needs. How much you need? What do you need? All them things.
Yeah.
But actually, like that, the satisfaction and the enjoyment, the euphoria moment of that.
Yeah. So I've never forgotten it. I can remember it clear as day. That was a great moment.
Compare that then. Let's compare that to the day private equity come in and you sit down with those people and you sign and you're in that situation where, wow, the business is sold for that part of the business. I've got that X.
Yeah.
How do they compare?
You know what? It probably sounds completely ridiculous. That was probably more satisfying filling that car up, because that was probably more important to me at the time. Since with the private equity, they gave me an awful lot of money now. They're going to give me an awful lot of money in a couple of years' time. And, far beyond my expectations, dreams and everything. But it kind of gets to a stage where, for the last few years, I've been very financially secure. That's not going to change my life. To be honest, it wouldn't, it's kind of thing people say, what do you do if you want one? And I go, I'm in a fortunate position where over the years I've managed to build up. I'm not materialistic. I've got everything that makes me happy. I'm sure my wife would like to go to Selfridges a bit more and but from that point of view, I'm very, very happy. So when that happened, the fact they gave me, there was an entry on my bank statement with an awful lot of zeros on it. And I looked at that and we kind of joke with my mates, it became one of those, it was more funny than anything else. We're at dinner parties, oh, look, I just pay this money. It was, oh, great, fantastic. It was kind of funny. Yeah. But it was that kind of, I suppose I'd had didn't change my financial security or my outlook on what I could do so much.
If you'd gone from earning 25 grand a year, and then that comes in, maybe there's a dip, because like you said, over building a business over 30 years and building the financial wealth, I guess you had done prior to that, it's just more money on top of what
it's more money that I stuck in the bank, and
that you're in a, like you said, how much more you don't need. There's only a certain amount we actually need. How much more do you need, and blah blah blah. What else could you? So it's not that doesn't change. I guess the reason you sit in front of me and seem genuinely in a great place and a happy person and all of those things, because actually you've still got your purpose, and you've still got something that you you're passionate about, that you love doing,
Yep.
and you're growing a business in that
Yeah,
sense, no?
yeah. I'm still, so I treat it as my baby. I still own a big chunk of the company, and I suppose it's that kind of, you say, you talk about legacy. That business is going to go from strength to strength. Absolutely. Well, it is every day. It gets up there. We've got a fantastic chap and a fantastic team running our business. So just watching that happen, it fills me with enormous pride. Compared to, say, sitting in my very small bedroom in a shared house, was a kind of way beyond whatever. I always had this feeling I'd do well. I was gonna make sure that happened. So I'm a tenacious sod, so I was always gonna, no matter how tough, I was always gonna get to a good place. But say with a bit of luck and a kind of rare wind, we kind of got to a really good place. So.
Brilliant. Get back to the expectation as well of other people. Can you pinpoint? Was there a part along your journey where you look round and was like, from your dad, from people around you, that level of success that you thought you'd achieve? Was there a point that you got to that and went, now I've made it, now I'm there?
I think it kind of happened gradually.
Yeah.
You kind of look back and you think, things are good. There's probably moments where, on my 40th birthday, I bought myself a nice car.
Yeah.
It was delivered on the back of a truck. And as it came out, everyone in the street looked at me. I kind of felt, what? And that's, so I'm not materialistic, but I love cars. I always have. But that was one of those moments where I must admit feeling a bit of a smug git. Going, you've made it, Skerritt kind of thing. Yeah. Especially as a chap who lived opposite, I didn't particularly like. He was out there looking through his window, and I'm thinking, yes, I win. So things like that. I think there's nice
little milestone. It's
nice moments in life that we all have. They just kind of, if you're lucky enough to kind of, be successful, they just get slightly bigger along the way, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing. Well, look, we're coming towards the one thing, just before we go into our last 60 seconds, the one thing I always do talk, which is something I really struggle with, and I'd be keen to just, like, the whole work-life balance thing. Over 30 odd years of running a business, and do you feel that you've had a work-life balance? Have you got it now more so than has it changed over the years? Talk to me a bit.
Probably been my biggest kind of struggle with the business, because especially when you start off and times are hard. So when we had, we had 5 kids under the age of 10 at one stage, and everything else as well. So that's a big financial kind of drain on there. So you need to kind of not just make sure you're paying the bills now, but you also start looking forward and saying, I've brought these 5 Herberts into the world, but I need to start thinking. Your priorities do change in terms of you're thinking about them going forward and the kind of succession and everything there. So suddenly there's enormous pressure, and you've got this kind of balance of you want to go to every one of their school plays, sports days, and whatever. And whenever I have, been able to, I always have, but I have missed some, and that really, really. I mean, I'm lucky enough now, so we've got Lottie, who's 8. And I go to everything I possibly can. We'll go and see her play hockey or cricket, whatever, knowing that she's probably going to play for 2 minutes. You drive all the way, whatever. But I love every second that I will always have. I think, again, my dad worked really hard, and he would work long days. So sometimes we wouldn't see him at all. For days he'd be gone before we woke up, and he'd come back after. But there'd be times he'd get back absolutely knackered. And he'd play with us for a bit. We loved those moments. And I kind of look back on that thinking, again, I think probably looking back on it, I'd have liked to have maybe turned the dial slightly more towards not missing any of those events. But sometimes you just feel that, you've got that responsibility that financially that you just, have to try and do that. And you're never going to get the balance right. I think now I've got it perfect, or probably brilliant now because there's less responsibility. But it's very difficult when they're young, and this is something. We were looking at buying a business. We chatted to this chap, and he had 5 kids under the age of 3. He had 2 sets of twins and a singleton.
Wow,
And,
wow. I've got twins, so blimey, having 2
I've
sets,
got
I don't
twins,
know.
yeah. And chatting to her, I go, and he was running a business, and he was, looking for whatever. I said to her, I bet you drive home slowly from work, don't you? She said, yeah, I do. Go back to that. And, I look at that and go, okay, he's got it really tough. That's very, very difficult. And mine was easier. But in terms of that balance, I think it's really important, massively important. And I think that's probably a regret that every single person that's worked hard at business will have. They will feel guilty, and I think as a parent you feel guilty for everything. It's just this inbuilt guilt of whatever you do, no matter how hard you try. And I think doing that, missing things, really does. I go to a lot of these things now, and it tends to be a lot to the mums and not so many of the dads, or the other way around, where one will, one is working and one's not, and they do that. So people are missing out, and I kind of feel for them, and I know that they will look back and it's very difficult. I had more control. I could do that, but
I mean, I guess with achieving levels of success in anything that you do, and I'm not just talking about in business, whether it's sport or whatever those things are. I guess there's going to be sacrifices along the way, isn't
of course,
there?
Yeah.
And I always I sort of talk to my wife about this a lot, and again trying to be present in the moment, and when I'm with the kids, not holding my phone and trying to all the things that become difficult on that journey, and it is tough. It is tough to get that balance right. But I do think there's a part of the caveat, I guess, and whether it's me just trying to justify it to myself, that you go, are there some other lessons that they're learning by seeing you graft and by seeing you work hard to build something that they go.
I think you're right. I look back at my childhood and say very, very happy. I got on brilliantly with my parents, and I was so proud and still down to my dad of what he did. And I missed out, and I would like to have spent more time. That's not his fault at all. He was building a business that was a real struggle. It was a difficult business to do, and he was doing everything he could. He had long hours, and his quality of life probably wasn't that great. But I know he was doing it for us, and I appreciate that. So, whilst I would have loved to have had more games and done whatever with him, there's not one bit of me that has any kind of bad feeling towards him for doing that. I know that, and hopefully my kids will have the same thing. It is a tough balance. It really is, and there's the old saying, isn't there, that things you won't say on your deathbed is one of the things is I wish I'd spent more time at work. And it's very, very true. People do sometimes. I think as well sometimes work is a good good way of getting away from screaming kids. And obviously not for me. But there's sometimes people, it's a case of they can either deal with dirty nappies or they can sit on the computer, they'd rather do that. But it's that balance of of trying to do the right thing, one, spending time, but also the financial thing, and obviously the more you work and the harder. One of my big things, I'm a real advocate of hard work. Laziness is something I really my hate in people, because I come from a family that weren't lazy. My kids have inherited that as well. They're all really hard work.
I was going to say that with the kids, because is that maybe a slightly difficult transition because of the financial security that you're able to give them, and obviously the opportunities, I guess, and the potential to still instill that work ethic in them.
That's a nightmare as well, because at the end of the day you love your kids more than anything in the world. You want them to have the best life, don't you? And it's very easy sometimes to go, I can make your life so great by buying you stuff, and that's absolutely the wrong. I mean, I probably end up. I'm the good cop kind of thing, where if they come to daddy, they get stuff, whatever. And great.
Heidi be a bit more. No.
I think she has to be. I mean, she's bad as well. She has to be. So, but I think that's a kind of almost a running joke. And if you ask daddy, he'll say yes. But it's very difficult because it's a tough world out there, and I honestly think it's so much tougher for kids these days than when I was a kid. I had a bloody easy. My life was simple. We didn't have social media, phones, all this kind of. Like
you said, playing in the street and going out.
We literally, there
was life, wasn't it?
I was saying something the other day. It's like, we knew that at the end of the day that we'd go out there. We lived in a little village, and we'd go off and we'd wander maybe 10 miles. We'd light fires. We'd go in the river when we shouldn't have done. We'd do kind of stuff now that I would not let my kids do. We'd go out on bikes, we'd get fights, we'd do whatever. But as long as we were back home by 5 o'clock for tea, everything was good. We didn't have phones, so the parents had no idea where we were. And it was the same. It was very relaxed. And, we'd come home with a few cuts, bruises and burns and whatever else as well. But that's great, and I loved that, absolutely loved that. Whereas our kids are not going to get that. You cannot. Things are so different now, and I really do worry for kids coming through. I've got my twin girls. They're both 19 now, and I think being a teenage girl is so tough. There's so tough now in terms of all the pressures and expectations and everything they have. And Lottie's 8. She's got to go through that. And I feel very lucky from my point of view that I was born when I was.
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to do it now.
No, I feel exactly the same. I've got mine are 8. I've got twins who are 8 now.
Yeah.
And I look at her and I just think, that life that they've got when going into teenagers, and like you said, that the social pressure that we just never had to experience, thankfully. And like you say,
but again, I think the financial security that I value is the fact of maybe I can you're in a position where I can make life, to maybe take away a bit of that pressure on them, because life's not all about money, and there's, but it does help sometimes with life, and it just makes you, you're able to do stuff that you can't if you haven't got that money, and that's why we deal with a whole business around helping people make money and get financially secure. And everyone wants to be in that position where they can do that. But in terms of the kids going forward, I'll do stuff for the kids to make help them with because again, bank of mum and dad, people talk about it. It's people need that now. My first flat, lovely 3-bedroom garden flat, cost me £22,000. In Clarendon Villas in Hove, lovely area, everything nice. Kids now looking at that probably 600,000. And
how did I even begin to think about getting on that?
I would never, I would never have gotten a property ladder. I look at stuff now and you think, we moan about how tough we had things and this and that. We didn't actually. We had it really, very easy, I think, compared to kids. But again, helping them get on the property ladder. It's so if you can afford to do it, it's a fantastic thing to do. But do it in the right way. Don't lavish them with designer gear and everything else as well. And my 3 boys are all working now. One of them works in the company.
Oh, right, nice.
He's a star in the company, and I'm really proud of him. One of my lads just kind of started his own business doing it, and one of them's got a really good job in London. On the tech side, it's always like that. So they are really hard working, and I love that.
Yeah, brilliant.
So,
and that's what I mean. There's that element of seeing you and the success you've achieved, and actually that they've looked at that and gone, that's come from Dad's hard work. And because I do sometimes look at that, although they see me grafting and working now or whatever. Yeah. But I am fortunate because of the nature of the business. I can be flexible and make sure that I'm at certain things, and working for myself allows me to do that, and that's something I love. There's
got to be some perks for working for yourself, haven't there?
Exactly that. Exactly.
There's a lot of downsides.
What's the last thing to switch off? Was you over the years looking back? Are you able to do it now? Still, are you able to lead the business and go,
no. No. I've notoriously always been a bad sleeper, so I tend to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and my brain is 100 miles an hour, and always been that way. And you know what, you can let it bother you, or you can see, that's maybe my superpower in terms of the stuff I think of there. Or I'd get up at 5 and by the time everyone's getting out, I've done 2 hours work, uninterrupted. And your brain at that point, moment is great. You get so much good stuff done. And whilst it's annoying there, I think it really does help. It's very, and you look at a lot of very successful, tend to look at the American people and whatever, they tend to do that. That tends to be the way they do stuff, get a lot of stuff done early in the day and start early and do that. And I think maybe just the way I'm built, that's probably helped me in that respect.
Listen, I'm exactly the same. I'm up at 5 most mornings, and that's my thing. And I love.
I have got better recently, so I've kind of noticed the difference since we had the new chief exec in. I tend to sleep a bit longer now. I was up at 5 this morning, but I tend to. It's certainly helping with that, which I think is it's a positive thing. But again, I like having an active brain. It's always active. It drives people around me mad, but it's the way I am, and I do enjoy it.
Love it. Look, mate, we're gonna. I could carry on talking to you for hours. It's been fascinating. But look, all of what we talked about, the key, as I always mention, is the success moment. I'm just keen to, as I ask everyone as we sort of come to wrap up, where you've been, where you are now, where you're going.
Yep.
Define success to me. How do you define success?
I think success has got to be around happiness. I think absolutely has to be, you know, if you're happy, you're successful, aren't you? You know, you can have all the worldly goods, you can have all the whatever, but if you're not happy, you're not successful. And there's lots of different marks of that, but I honestly think that if you're content, happy, again, going back to Mr. Maslow, you know, it's that kind of thing. If you get to that point where you think you're in a happy place, you know, the people around you are happy, and you just self-actualization, isn't it? You know, your true self. That I think is the goal that everyone, you know, strives towards. And if you reach that point, then that's massive success. You know, it's not all about money in the bank or material objects or anything else as well. It's about how you feel about yourself. And you know, you can look at the likes of, you know, Steve Jobs and people like that had all the money in the world. Don't think he was ever happy. You know, and again, it relates back to that. Was he happy? No. Was he successful? Define success. You know, I wouldn't say he was successful in terms of that. From, you know, as a human being, monetary wise, business wise, but to be successful as a human being, you have to be happy. You have to be, you know, reach that self-actualization, I think.
Because exactly that, like, again, it's back to the measure of success, isn't it? If you, you're exactly right. You measure Steve Jobs' success based on based on business and financial performance. 100%. Wow, very successful. But you get that barometer of happiness, and where its happiness and contentment and fulfillment lies, maybe not as successful.
Again, you know, different things drive. You know, you look at successful people, and there's certain traits in successful people, and I think there's two. I mean, Steve Jobs, when he went back, came back. The first thing he did was stop their charitable program. You know, it's a famous story, and you look at that and go, you know what? That's, you know, that's not a great kind of trait to have as a human being, and also that can't make you happy. You know, just because that adds a bit to the bottom line, you cannot. You know, as a company, we have a charitable side, social side, everything as well, and that's one of our absolute key drivers. Probably from a purely selfish point of view, because it makes us happy. You know, we like doing that, and again, you know, it's something for us. We don't really, you know, it's not something you go, look at us, we're fantastic. It just makes us happy to do that. I think you can do that. And again, you know, you look at someone like him, if the first thing you do is do that, how can you be happy inside? You can't. You know, you never will be.
And it's that famous thing. You look at how many people are known who, I look at them financially, wow, like really successful in that sense, and yet actually might not have a partner or kids, and they're maybe sitting in a massive house. Or
usually they've got a partner they don't want to be with.
Or whatever that looks like. You just go, actually, because I guess one of the reasons I always go down this line of questioning and why I'm so fascinated by the subject is because I know that, like, I think, you know, if me and you had met when I first started the salon, we had these conversations. My driver was 100%. I'm going to be a multi-millionaire. By the time I found out, I remember getting to 40. And being the furthest away from being a multi-millionaire I could ever be, and I was like, I failed, blah blah blah. I've not achieved what I wanted, and I went into a bit of a dark place. And actually, what got me out of it was very much that I was very fortunate to look around. I was surrounded by people who loved me and who I loved. And you go, actually, if my measurement of success is based on the connections and relationships I've built over the years, you know, now I'm doing all right, mate. So I was okay with that.
Again, financially, some of the, you know, we deal with lots of high net worth individuals, and it's our job to do that. And some of the richest people are some of the most miserable people you ever meet. And, you know, it's a strange thing because, again, people strive for what they think is going to make them happy, get there and go, you know what, I've probably missed out on a lot along the way, or, you know, my objective has been completely wrong. And, you know, some of the, you know, people who've got, and it comes back to enough. No, I've got a big group of football friends. Unfortunately, we all support Norwich City, and it's something I've been inflicted with from an early age, and I can't shake it off. But we've built up this fantastic group of friends, and you know, they live in Kent and Hampshire and Essex and whatever. We kind of, you know, we become friendly through that. And one of the things actually is there's a couple there, and they knew me from football. They've known me for years, kind of thing. And they live in Hampshire. And one time we were going out for a game, and I said, "Well, why don't you come drive to my place first, and we've got a, you know, coach going out for whatever." And they turned up at the house, and we got a nice-ish house and whatever. And I went, tell you what, we would not have put you. We would have out of there. There's no way in a million years, from knowing you for 10 years, I've put you as all we knew as the chap who in a Wetherspoons pub and whatever. And I took that as a massive compliment. That to them I was just this idiot at the football who'd probably drink too much, get a bit leery and whatever, and do that. And I thought I love that. And a lot of my
being your authentic self, right?
Closest friends are still from my best friend I've known since the age of 11, and other friends there, and they're all happy people. They're great people, and that to me is much more important than mixing with people just because of their wealth or their status or the whatever else as well. And again, it comes back to that's who I am. This leery idiot at the football who drinks a Wetherspoons pint and has a fry up when he gets there on a match day, and keeps me happy. Yeah,
mate, absolutely. But look, final one. What's the future hold for you?
Future comes back to work-life balance. I think I'd like to kind of still work in a capacity. I'm really enjoying where the balance is at the moment. It's the perfect balance for me. It's given me more time to do stuff. I think as well when you work hard for 30 odd years, you suddenly realise you haven't really got any hobbies. And I love my boxing, I love going to the football, I love those kind of things. But outside of that, if I was sat at home all day, I'd be absolutely bored, and probably divorced as well because I drive my wife mad. But I think it's just finding that next stage there of doing something, and I can got the absolute luxury of doing something I enjoy. And it will be charitable stuff where I'll really enjoy, but I want to do the hands-on stuff. We spoke earlier about the kind of using boxing as a way to help youngsters kind of with the mental health side of things, and kind of finding a purpose and whatever. And that excites me now enormously in terms of I have the luxury of being able to do that and do that, and hopefully spend a bit more time in the sun.
Amazing.
And maybe do the fatal sin of buying a boat.
Ooh,
I know. And we
go.
all know the sayings about buying a boat. And, maybe do that if I'm foolish enough.
Yeah. Mate, Phil, look, we didn't even touch on the boxing side of things, and
it's just I love the boxing, and so my kids, or 4 of my kids, have now done boxing. My daughter is.
Are you saying your daughter?
She got into the final of the national championships, and she's an absolute star. She trains with Scott Welch, the ex, heavyweight boxer, and his son Tommy did well on Friday as well. The big thing at the thing. But it's a real focus, and we absolutely love it. So we're fortunate enough now that we fly out to LA and watch the Fury Wilder fight with things like that, and do it with my kids who all love it, and it's just such a really nice thing to do. So hopefully do a bit more of that, and F1 as well.
Mate, nice, good sport. And I know we spoke offline before we did about the boxing and how you can relate so much of that to business and the lessons that you learn from those things, and hence I guess look, one of the things you spoke about, talking about your childhood and getting punched in the face, that we do as business
I'd like to
owners.
meet the chap again now.
Get him in one of them white collar boxes. I'd pay to see that.
No, I think boxing again. It's contentious. Some people think it's a barbaric sport and this and the other. I actually think it's it's a real noble sport. And in terms of, for me, we spoke about in terms of preparing for a fight is it's so similar to preparing yourself for business meetings and stuff like that. It sounds really tenuous, but it's really not, because that preparation, if you fail a business meeting, you might walk out of there and you haven't got the business and you're a bit annoyed, but you don't prepare for the boxing match, that hurts quite a lot. And teaching you those kind of lessons there, it's just really good mentally, and I think it's been well, I was in 2 minds about doing my first one, but it was on my bucket list of do I do that first fight, and you were there at the fight.
I was.
And managed to win the first round, but it didn't quite kind of tick that box, or scratch that itch in terms of I needed to do it again. And if it wasn't for my shoulder, despite being an old git now, I'd love to do it again.
Get back in
so
there.
I'm doing it for curiosity now through my kids.
Amazing.
Fantastic sport.
Yeah. Well, look, hopefully you'll be at I'm going to do the work. I told you it's on my
I'll
bucket
be
list,
ringside.
so, mate,
I'll be ringside there,
mate,
giving you useless advice.
you in. Well, look, like I say, it's been, for me, obviously knowing you over the years, but never really actually having much time to actually sit down and chat to each other. And honestly,
all we needed was a pint, really, wouldn't
mate,
it? Just been
you know what? And honestly, I can't say what a fascinating, amazing episode. I can't wait to share it.
Oh, thanks.
I think
I kind of came in here with the thought of why on earth would anyone want to listen to me babbling on about the kind of
Mate, honestly, it's so insightful, and what you've achieved in business, in life, is incredible. And so, like I said, I guess I'm fortunate enough we're in a business community where I'm surrounded by people who are inspiring, and you're certainly one of those really inspiring people. And it's been a fascinating conversation, mate.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it, but. I just.
But listen, we could have
guarantee. I can guarantee no listeners are going to got to this point where they'll actually hear us saying this.
I'm sure they will, because there's so much to be taken away. Look, we have to do part 2 because we could have gone on for a lot longer, I'm sure. But anyway, listen, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Amazing, and that, as they say, is a wrap.